All right, Pisces, here we go. Here's your overall for the week. Oh boy. Oh, getting right to the point, aren't we? The Lovers. Now, with the Lovers, we could be talking about a significant relationship. We could be talking about choices that you need to make. And again, with the Lovers, it's whether or not you follow temptation or the moral high ground. But, whew, oh boy. All right. Now, in the past, the Four of Swords. So if we're talking about a relationship in the past, there wasn't a whole lot of communication. The Four of Swords, I just see as the, calling a truce. Like, okay, it is what it is, and I'm just not going to say anything. But at the same time, this may be something you've been thinking about. For some of you, it's literally taking a break from a major relationship, which is possible. But are you coming out of this now, right? And making choices. In the present, the Two of Swords. So, one of the things that I talk about with the Two of Swords is that blindfold is bullshit. Because what comes before that is the Ace of Swords. So you already know what the truth is. But you're not willing to make a choice or a decision. And a lot of the reason for that, like I always point out, is because of the moon, right? Not knowing what's going to happen based on the choice that you make. So rather than making a choice, we stay at the stalemate. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with this. Some of you may be making that difficult choice now when it comes to a relationship. You may be faced with a choice, though, too. But I'm waiting to see what's happening here. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, oh boy. With the Lovers being overall here, if we're talking about a relationship, I do think that because of the Four of Swords being the past coming through, that this is something that, it was what it was. But now it's your central focus. And it makes me wonder if it's because, of somebody coming back through, because you're kind of faced with needing to make a choice here on whether or not to get involved. Especially if, you spent a while here, not really doing anything about it, not really thinking about it, not really talking about it. But like I said, for some of you may have been thinking about it with the Four of Swords. But with the Four of Wands in future conditions, here's the thing. Even if we're looking at that in the reverse, it's just delayed. You're looking at stability. And I look at the blending of families with this one, right? Building a life with someone, or getting to the point where you've made a major choice in your life and now you feel like you've accomplished something, right? Reaching that milestone. One of the things that I talked about with the Four of Swords, or the Four of Swords, the Four of Wands. Now I've got both of them mixed up because I still feel like this is still an issue. But anyway, right? When you get to this point, there's a reason to celebrate, right? You get to stand back and look at what you have built, but you know that there's still more to do, right? But now is the time to celebrate. But getting to a place of stability with a major relationship where there may have been a break, but again, it's I'd like to think that you made a choice, but even if you didn't, this is still here. It's just a matter of, getting to this, right? And not delaying the inevitable, so to speak. But it's not bad. Okay. Your best path to follow the Emperor. This to me is saying that you're going to have to take charge on this. But then I still go back to the Oracle cards and think that, you will know, you will know. Divine timing is one of those things where it's okay, that's great and all, but when the fuck is that going to happen? I get the impatience behind that. But you will know. But at the same time, I feel like it's going to be up to you to take control over what is going on here. If you're having to make a choice in regards to a relationship, it's going to be on you to get control over what's going on. But regardless though, you still end up in this place of the Four of Wands. I think that the reason why we're looking at the Emperor is because you may be, the person in this relationship that has more stability, and not only that, but more wisdom when you're looking at the Emperor. You may know how to handle the situation a little bit better. But the thing is, though, is, what are you doing right now? Well, nothing. Oh, wow. In your environment, the Hierophant. Whew, Jesus. All right. And that may be why. And that may be why. So here's what I'm looking at here. For some of you, we're talking about a major relationship with the Lovers. I can't deny that when I look at the Lovers. With the Two of Cups, I mean, yeah, we could be talking about a relationship, but it could be any relationship, friends, family, coworkers, right? But the Lovers, I mean, that's bigger. Now, when we're talking about choices, with the Hierophant being in your environment, it's making a choice to commit to something. But like I said, eventually it leads you to the Four of Wands, which is great. But the Lovers, yeah. I do think that I'm talking to some of you who are looking at a major relationship. Now, on that end of it, with the Hierophant being in your environment, you are talking about a major commitment, right? With the Hierophant, right? Spiritual grounding. Like I always want to go like that when I see him, depending on what Hierophant I'm looking at. But, traditions, sticking to traditions, wanting to do things in like a traditional sense, especially when it comes to a relationship. But for some reason, there was a break, but we're not looking at like the Ten of Swords, which is weird because, I would expect to see like an ending and a renewal, but I don't think that anything ever ended. I don't think anything ever stopped. I think that some of you may have cut off communication, you or another person, but for some reason it's coming back up. But if you're looking at like a major commitment involved with this, it may be you or the other person that may be like, well, I don't know, That's a big choice, and it is. It's a big, difficult choice. But like I said, with the Emperor, I feel like you're the one that's going to have to take control of this, right? I mean, if this is what you're ultimately wanting here, it's going to be up to you to take control of the situation. You're either going to commit or you're not. And if you want order and control, right, then yeah, you're going to have to make a commitment here. But do you really want to do that though? I get the feeling that for some of you, you may not want to. And like, it shouldn't have to be that way though either. Like, you shouldn't have to like make the choice to make a major commitment, but it could be that, the other person wants this or that you want this. Something traditional, something that's like a major commitment. But I still see you needing to be the one to take control of this situation, right? And it may be you that needs to speak with witness. But, when is the right time to do that? Oh my goodness. All right. Oh my goodness. The Hermit. The Hermit above the Hierophant. Okay, so now as far as a fear, it's really about, you continuing to be on your own and kind of looking at what your wishes were initially, but like not realizing it as far as hopes and fears go. As far as a hope, it's really about doing the soul searching, right? Especially if you're being asked to make a major choice when it comes to a commitment. And like I said, right, with the Lovers being the overall, because we're talking about a general reading, it's major choices that you're making, and it could definitely have to do with work, where you're moving to, who you're moving in with, a relationship. But the Hermit, I always see him as like looking back at that 1 through 9, and looking at everything that he's experienced and everything that he's learned through that process, and looking back at what the original hope was. Like it's time to come out now. Like it's time to come out of this now and to speak, but you may be like holding back because like I said, looking at these two, clearly this is not being able to make a choice on a major commitment, especially with the Lovers. Wow. Okay. Oh my God. Really? And I'm telling you, you're just like delaying it. Like it's there, but you're delaying it. Now, you could definitely have reached this spot as far as stability within a major relationship, but with the Two of Wands coming out, right? It's like you could go this way or you could go that way, but you're thinking about taking action, and it may be because ultimately what you want here is to possibly build something with someone, move in with someone, make a commitment with someone, but it's a major one, with the Hierophant being there. And then the Six of Wands. Oh my goodness. Okay, so when we're talking about, what action you're eventually going to take here to get to a place of stability, possibly with a relationship, or like I said, it could have to do with work, right? With the Nine of Wands, you're on guard. One of the things that I've always said about this is that the person who is so ready to continue fighting here may be blocking out opportunities from coming through, but there may be a reason why there is a part of you that is like blocked out right now. Because I'm still looking at this in the present moment. With the Wheel of Fortune, like I've always said when it comes to this card, repeating cycle shows up for me with this. Fate and destiny, the opportunity for better things to happen. Absolutely, right? But sometimes we don't feel like we're in control of our own fate and destiny. Sometimes we do, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't think that this is something that you have any control over. And this could definitely be something coming back around. But like I said, with the Wheel of Fortune, absolutely, this is an opportunity for better things to happen. And I'm looking at this. But then you have the Six of Wands. And it looks great. No matter what you decide to do or how you decide to act, ultimately, you're going to come out of this feeling like you've not only done the right thing for you, but you're going to feel that sense of victory with the Six of Wands. But now, the other part of this, though, too, is that attention and that recognition that comes through. And it may be that, right, you have somebody who is showing you attention. And that may be why you're at the Two of Wands. Like, what do I do? How do I act on this? But like I said, eventually you lead here. It doesn't look bad, Pisces. So if we're talking about a relationship, you could definitely have somebody that is recognizing you. It could be something that's coming back around again. And this doesn't have to be like a person from the past, right? When we're looking at the Wheel of Fortune, it's one of those things where you may look at it like, I've already been through this. It may look very similar to something that you've been through before. But I don't know. I go back to that Four of Swords and I feel like this is something that never really ended. But, like I said, you ultimately have the wisdom when it comes to how to move forward on this. And it's going to be up to you to take control. But are you willing to make a major commitment? Especially if you've kind of been in this state about it for a while. Because you're still showing the Hermit, though. And, and the other thing, though, too, is I feel like with the Four of Wands being there, that this isn't something that you want to continue to do anymore, though, either. But it's like if you do speak up, if you do come out of that Four of Swords and you do say something, right? It's like big. It's big. I mean, all the way, it's like this big thing, but it looks so minor when you get into future conditions. But there's like so much surrounding it. All right, it's not bad for couples, but what I will say with the Eight of Pentacles showing up, it's one of those things where you may be really focused on your work right now, and your partner may be there going, hey, I'm here, spend some time with me, right? And it's time for you to give yourself a break and have some fun with your partner, and that's basically what it is. Right? Now, it could be that your partner may be too focused on work and you need to show that playful side and get them a little bit more engaged, but like, I don't know, I feel like more so that this is Pisces. You're too focused on yourself, your career right now, and it may be stressing you out, and it may be one of those things where you're like pushing your partner away, like, I don't have time to play with you right now, I just need to think and focus, right? But maybe you do need to open up and play a little bit, but it's not bad. Now, for those of you who are single, looking at the Queen of Cups, if you have somebody coming back into your life with the Queen of Cups, you are emotionally invested. This to me is, romance, emotions coming through, an emotional connection. Now, you could definitely be talking about another water sign for some of you. But whoever this is, there is an emotional connection and attachment to. And it looks good, right? Especially for this court card showing up. But like I said, someone from your past. Oh my goodness. All right, Pisces. So, like I said, I do think that, this is going to have to do with the major relationship for some of you. Now, like I said before, though, on the other hand, if we're talking about you needing to make a major choice when it comes to what you need to do as far as work goes, you ultimately move into a place where you get the recognition you deserve absolutely based on the action that you eventually take. Because you're thinking about taking action here. That's the whole point of the Two of Wands, is the action that you're going to take to create your own world. And you do end up in a place of stability. But really, with the Lovers being there, I do think that I'm talking to some of you who are looking at a very significant relationship. All right, Pisces. I can't deny the fact that we're looking at the Lovers as the overall, and again, general rating is not going to apply to everybody, but this is something significant for somebody, I feel like. Now, first of all, with Witness and Impatience, there may be something that you need to speak up about, but maybe right now is not the right time. Again, divine timing, you will know when it is right for you to say something, but I can feel that Knight of Swords energy around it. But, it may be, because we're talking about Knight of Swords energy, it may be that there's more information that you need to know about first before you actually say anything, right? And I can understand the impatience, but there may be more to know. Now, right, getting right to the point, but what I feel like is happening here is that this is something that, first of all, is going to have to do with a major commitment, with the Hierophant being there. But with the Four of Swords as the past coming through and the Lovers being the signifier, I don't think that this is something that was ever over with. Because we're not looking at a 10 here. The Wheel of Fortune's definitely there, but I think it's because something's coming back around. In singles, I'm talking to you. Now, I think that some of you are looking at this it's either you or another person that you're dealing with, why does this have to be such a major commitment, right? Maybe that isn't the best way to go. Maybe it doesn't need to jump to that point. But then also, for some of you, you may not be willing to make the choice to do this if the other person is not willing to not just commit, but do things in the traditional sense, because we're talking about the Hierophant, right? But I don't know. I see it more so as you going, I don't know if I want to make that choice yet because this is going to be a major commitment, but you eventually lead there anyway. With the Four of Wands, yes. Yes. No matter what it is that you ultimately decide to do, you're going to lead to a place of security and stability with the Four of Wands there. Especially in terms of a relationship, because like I said, I see this as people building a life together. The blending of families, right? Moving in with somebody possibly. And that may be the major choice there. That's a major commitment. And for some of you, like I said, if we're talking about work, right, there's a major commitment involved and you may have to move. And that may be the issue, getting to a place where you feel like you've accomplished something, but that may be a difficult choice to make. Again, because with the Hierophant being there, it's a major commitment that needs to be made. Now, as far as the Emperor, I feel like not so much that you need to get control over something or over yourself. I feel like you are the one that has more wisdom, especially with these two being here. I feel like it's going to be up to you to kind of take control of the situation. You need to step up. You have to step up to the plate. You're going to be the one that's going to get everything under control, especially if we're looking at major commitments, right? But I look at this at hopes and fears, and I go back to your past. And I do think that some of you don't want to be this anymore, silent and alone. But I do think that you're looking at the Lovers and going, is this really what I've hoped for, Because again, the stars in his lantern. This is what you've been waiting for. This is what you've been working toward, right? But is it everything that it was meant to be? Really doing the soul searching here before you make a major commitment is basically it. because that's no small fry. I mean, this is big time here. Now, coming out of this, like I said, it doesn't matter what action you take. It's all about, you creating your own world the way that you choose, especially when it comes to relationships. But there is a level of commitment that needs to be made. And I do think that for some of you, it's either moving in together or moving somewhere. But looking at the Nine of Wands and the Wheel of Fortune, first of all, you're guarding yourself. It's like you're keeping it out, right? Now, especially if this is something that's coming back around, and again, singles, I'm talking to you. But with the Wheel of Fortune, right, it doesn't have to be the same person for all of you. It could just look like the same situation that you've been through, but it's fate and destiny stepping in, right? We're talking about the wheel here. But it is an opportunity for better things to happen, and then you have the Six of Wands. And it's funny because the Six of Wands, when you're looking at the wand suit, first of all, it does talk about travel. But the Six of Wands is the coming home card. And then you have the Four of Wands, right? Having a sense of victory over, the action that you take and the choices that you make, feeling like you've done the right thing, not just for you, but for, a partner possibly here. It looks good to me. Like, it looks good either way. Either way you go. No matter what you decide to ultimately do here, you are going to get to a place of stability, and you're still going to be recognized for making the right choice. Okay? But, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is something that some of you have been waiting on. Now, relationships. For those of you who are single, reconciliation, someone from your past is returning to your life, and then you have the Queen of Cups. So, and I'm going to say this because of this being a general reading. One of the things that I talk about when court cards show up, whether we're talking about the normal tarot or the tarot of sexual magic, it's really about the personality of the card and you taking on that energy because of a person being around you. Now, the Queen of Cups, we could absolutely be talking about Pisces, or we could be talking about another water sign being in your space. Regardless if you're male or female, and regardless if you are attracting a male or female, it doesn't matter. With the Queen of Cups, for me, there is emotional attachment. There is involvement here, and there is romance and love. And I like her more so than any of the other ones. I like the King of Cups, but I like her because it really shows like the tenderness of the relationship, right? Now, for those of you who are in a relationship, it's not bad. Playfulness and the Eight of Pentacles, basically, if you're too focused on your career, you may be looking at your partner right now going, I can't play with you, but maybe you need to. Right? Because you may be stressed out about your career or about finances, being the Eight of Pentacles. But I don't see it as a bad thing. I just think that somebody is trying to reach out and another person is not focusing. But you're being asked to be playful, which makes me think that maybe some of you are too focused and maybe there just needs to be some more fun time in a relationship. But like I said, overall here, Pisces, no matter what choice you make, you're going to be recognized for making the right choice for you.